Thanks so much for staying with us on Renewable Now. This being our last segment of the energy shows here at Carty's Furniture. And one of the things you've probably been wondering is, what is this eNow truck sitting back there? Well, Jeff Flath is here from eNow, President, CEO. Jeff, how are you
Peter,
doing?
good, how are you?
And Bob, how are you doing? Bob, we've got a bit of a history together, having done the Cape Air shows. And,
that's right.
And now back on eNow. So good to see you, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Peter.
Give us the backstory on eNow.
eNow is basically a collaboration between my history and a previous position I was in, and started to look at integrating thin film solar in 2003. And in that life, we became acquainted with ARPAN and your team about looking at how to put a bladder system on the top of a truck, integrate solar, and how to operate that in getting rid of ice and snow.
It is kind of ironic. We came together. We're working on the solar and the battery, and as you said, you're helping us work on the bladder, and then boom, right? You get an opportunity to actually shift all your attention to this technology.
Correct. And so in 2011, April 2011, we formed eNow, and was based off of some experience we had in developing the first 100% solar-powered billboard in Times Square, New York, as an example, and then integrating solar into transportation applications.
So tell us about these products, these solutions to transportation, and how they're going to change the landscape.
Well, basically, eNow is not a collaboration. eNow basically combines various different energy sources, solar being one of them, but not the only one. So we can take power from the alternator, we can take power from plugging the truck in at night and charging batteries, we can take power from regenerative brake systems, regenerative shock absorbers, and exhaust recovery systems. All systems that the major trucking companies are working on, your Navistars, your Max, your Peterbilts, and so forth.
And what are the goals of doing that? Is it to drive down operating costs? Is it to increase efficiency? Is it to help the environment? What are the goals of doing that?
It's everything you've said. It's obviously to eliminate some of the greenhouse gases that are generated in the trucking industry and transportation industry in general. But it is also a cost avoidance, because we can reduce the cost of the fuel and other components, particularly in no-idle situations with the no-idle laws, where trucks can't idle, so they don't have cabin comfort or whatever. We can actually power those systems.
So in simple terms, you're using solar panels, and we're going to talk about how you're innovating really some of your own panels and how the production levels are getting much greater. So you're capturing that and other energy sources, putting it into batteries, and then that's allowing the driver or the operator, Bob, then to not idle at times?
Not idle, and use, as I mentioned, cabin comfort, or another good example is lift gates. Delivery companies have to keep their trucks idling quite often just to keep the power to the lift gates. Well, we store that power, we can do that, we can replenish that during the day while they're doing their runs, where quite often they only replenish at night, they plug in, or they have to rely on the alternator to give additional power.
Or potentially they could have burned out the battery when they were sitting there making deliveries, like a Carty's Furniture does. Jeff, tremendous technology, has potential all over the world. Huge savings in energy costs, emissions, make the fleets that much more efficient, even in terms of having power for communications. Why did you decide on Rhode Island, and what kind of, because one of the things we're doing here on these shows about energy is really looking at who's driving it, who's driving this new plan, who's driving these new efficiencies, is it public, is it private? So why here, and what kind of help have you got?
I have to laugh when somebody says, why Rhode Island? I've lived in Rhode Island. My wife and I and family have lived in Rhode Island for 30 years. And so we call this home, and we said, why not Rhode Island? Rhode Island has so much to offer with regard to its infrastructure of some of the best educational institutes in the world.
Which must be very valuable to you, right?
Absolutely.
On the R&D side?
Absolutely. And we said, you know, Rhode Island is losing jobs, not gaining jobs. So why not do something in the state that makes a difference to the people in the state of Rhode Island, to the economy, and to the world.
And so have you gotten some help? Have you worked with the schools? Have you worked with the government? What have been because it's very interesting to us as we see new businesses incubated, this kind of new green economy, new jobs, new commerce. Have you had some help, and what have been the sources to kind of get you to where you are today?
Like your previous, Steve Eves, one of your previous guests said, it's a combination. It's a combination. We had to raise money to be able to seed the company with the appropriate amount of capital to get it off the ground. So it was a combination of private equity, and we actually went through the Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation and applied for the Job Guarantee Program.
Which has allowed you to do some beta testing,
correct,
start to work with potential customers, and really get to the level where you're commercially viable.
Yes,
now, I assume.
We actually have purchase orders, and we've shipped product, it's been installed, and it's in use as we speak.
Well, let's get into that. So who are some of the existing and potential customers for eNow?
Our basic customers are anybody in the transportation industry, such as your Department of Transportations, your utility companies, your communication companies, road construction, anyone who may have a vehicle that's sitting along the road, running emergency lighting, warning the public. They're currently running their engines idling the engines to provide electricity.
So you, as an example, worked with, is it the Department of Maine?
Maine Department of Transportation.
Maine Department of, and what did you do for them exactly?
Yeah, we put in a solar panel and a small battery system, and so that they could run all their emergency lights and directional lights, their beacons, on the side of the road. And when they first started with us, they were getting an average of 7.2 miles per gallon on the vehicle because it idled all day. Once we put the system in, it went up to about 11 miles per gallon.
That is fantastic.
It's been fantastic, and they jumped right on it and avoided some systems.
That is fantastic. So the rate of return, the return on investment has got to be terrific. So I assume then that is applicable to other departments of transportation?
Correct, absolutely.
Even in Rhode Island, do they use a lot of the same equipment? Do they have a lot of the same needs for power? Or?
Correct. Yeah. We're actually meeting with Rhode Island Department of Transportation tomorrow. So
they too would contemplate the ability
absolutely.
To use your systems and in particular solar in that case to power some of that. When we come back from break, we really want to get into, okay, so let's talk about some more of the customers and what's the potential impact on them, on their operations, and on their customers. We'll be right back.